Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. I'm Annette Young. We're already into the second week of 2013, but there's still the time to try and predict what lies ahead on the global front. Will there, for example, be Western intervention in Syria? Will the Eurozone pull away from the precipice? Or will Barack Obama bomb Iran? Not to mention, just how much influence does France have these days on the world stage? Now, with his crystal ball, and to answer all of these questions, is Bernard Guetta, an international affairs commentator with the French daily Libération, as well as the France Inter radio station, not to mention a host of other French media outlets. Bernard, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Let's start with what's in Barack Obama's intrigue. He's just put forward a raft of nominations, including a new Secretary of Defence, Chuck Hagel, who of course has been accused by his opponents for being too soft on Iran. Do you think Washington this year is going to give the green light for military action, or rather a military strike on Iran's nuclear sites?
Obama will try first to negotiate a compromise with the Iranian leadership. Is it possible or not? I do not know. Nobody knows, and Obama doesn't know. But he will try, and he's right to want to do so. But if he cannot reach a compromise with Tehran, he will bomb Iran. Certainly yes. Certainly yes, for two reasons. First, he said so. And not once, but many times. And second, it's not possible, reasonably possible, to let Iran become a nuclear power. For two reasons. First, if it was the case, we would have, in a matter of 5 or 7 years, a Middle East with 4, 5 or 6 nuclear powers, which is a nightmare, which would be a nightmare. And second, if Obama would let Iran become nuclear, Israel would intervene.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think if indeed they go down the path of embarking on military action, it would be the Americans or would it be the Israelis?
I think it would be, if there is no compromise, it would be America. Maybe with the support of the Israelis, I don't know, but mainly speaking, America. And it would be much better in the worst scenario. It would be much better than if it was the Israelis in terms of regional repercussions.
Staying in the region, because we've got a lot of area to cover, Bernard, let's now move to Syria. Do you think in the next 12 months we're going to see a Western military intervention?
What do you mean by military intervention? If you are speaking about a military intervention with troops on the ground, certainly not. But we could see the Western countries either paralyze the aviation of the Syrian regime or deliver arms to the opposition, but I mean real deliveries.
So you're talking about a no-fly zone, that we could possibly see something like what we saw in Libya, where international forces...
Strictly speaking, a no-fly zone, not an intervention against the regime. But strictly speaking, a no-fly zone, yes. First, it's possible. And second, on my eyes, it's wishable. It's wishable for two reasons. If we don't support the opposition, the jihadists will do so. And this is certainly not in the interest of the world stability. And second reason, if this conflict would last for 6 months, 6 more months, we could see the entire region become a real chaos. Why? Because this war could start a war also in Iraq between the three communities, the same as in Syria. I mean the Sunnite, the Shiite, and the Kurds. And second, it could destabilize Jordan and Lebanon. It could start a regional conflict between Sunnite and Shiite. And it could help the Kurdish question to come back on the regional scene. Why? Because the Kurds are already completely, you say autonomous, how do you
Autonomous.
say? Autonomous. Autonomous in Iraq. They are becoming completely autonomous in Syria. And if those two Kurdish populations could become a little bit more autonomous, it will revive swiftly the Kurdish question in Turkey.
And that's something the Turks definitely do not want, do they, Bernard?
Certainly not. And they are so afraid of that, the Turkish leadership, that they just started negotiation with their own Kurds to try to reach a compromise in order to avoid this comeback or revival of the Kurdish secessionism in Turkey.
Now, given it is Obama's second term, and normally in their second terms, American presidents want to leave behind a legacy, what do you think he will do in the area of foreign policy, certainly in the year ahead?
He has no choice. He has to take two decisions, very difficult, very risky, both of them, Iran and Syria. And if we could give him an advice from Paris, Mr. President, give some arms to the Syrian rebellions, or organize a no-fly zone, because if we could start by weakening the Syrian regime, it will be a good sign to the Iranian leadership. My dear fellows, you are completely isolated now in the area. Let's start a real discussion and reach a good compromise for you, for us, and for the world's stability.
Okay, so if he is listening to Paris, and that's my next question, do you think the French have still a voice that is heard on the world stage?
I would say so. I would say so. Just think about Libya. It was 2 years ago. Just think about what President Hollande said about Syria last August. If the different political parties of the opposition reach an agreement and unify their forces, we will recognize this new opposition, united opposition, as the real representative of the Syrian people. And that's what happened. And that's what happened. Actually, France defined last August the international agenda on Syria.
Of course, talking about France, the French government has a lot on its plate at the moment. With the Eurozone crisis, a lot of people are pointing the finger towards this country, saying it will be the next domino to fall. Do you agree that that's the case? And do you think the French government has what it takes to deal with it?
You know, France is not Greece. It's not even Portugal, Spain, or Italy. France is a rich country, very powerful, very strong, actually. But we have a real indebtedness. We have a real deficit. We are not alone, but the deficit is real. And the government is trying to reduce the indebtedness and the deficit. And it's very hard for the people. Of course, it's very hard. France is on the verge of a nervous breakdown. There is a possibility of a national strike or something like that. And if France would indulge itself this kind of nervous breakdown, it would be a real catastrophe, not only for France, but for Europe.
Bernard, on that very cheerful note, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you to you.
And that's it for this edition of the France 24 interview. In the meantime, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can, at AnnetteF24. And do stay with us here on France 24.